Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Repeat Ron, and today we're going to be doing another Deep Rock Galactic build guide. This is going to be for Scout and their various equipment, including the grappling hook and the flare gun. How I build them, and a couple different builds that I've tried, what the pros and cons are, and we'll talk about a few different builds that I use with each of these. So starting out with the grappling hook, in tier 1, our two options are improved recharger. So rather than 4 seconds, we wait 3.5 seconds, which is always good. And we have longer cable. This just gives you longer maximum range of your grappling hook. This can also be really useful. 20 meters sometimes just isn't enough in certain areas. Most of the time you can get away with it though. It's only when trying to get the right angle to certain other materials is when maximum range really becomes an issue. The first build I'm going to be showing is the increased range and increased utility, where you're really just using the grappling hook to get around and you're aware of its maximum cooldown. So with this first build, I would recommend the longer cable. In tier 2, we only have one option, which is greater cable stretch. This gives you another 5 meters worth of reach, so you go from 20 to either 25 or 30, depending on if you had taken this. In this case we have, so it'd be up to 30. So we have a much easier time getting anywhere where anybody calls out any sort of collectible material or collectible secondaries, whether that be flowers or mushrooms or whatever it might be. It's just going to make that much easier. In tier 3, we have high velocity ejection system. We shoot out the hook faster. So it doesn't take 0.4 seconds for the hook to go out and grab. It takes 0.2 seconds, which this one can be pretty useful, especially if you're getting swarmed. You can use this much faster to get away from the swarm, which can always be useful. And even if you're not getting swarmed, it makes it so you can, shoot out and grab a little bit quicker, which is kind of handy. Our other option in tier 3 is Overcharged Winch. This makes it so you go to your destination faster. So once you shoot out your grappling hook and it hits somewhere, you go there much faster, which can be really useful as well if you're getting swarmed, like I said, especially if you're getting swarmed by Mactera. You can use this to get away even quicker, so their projectiles likely won't be able to hit you, especially something like a menace that usually shoots multiple times you can get away from. Even at regular speed, you can usually get away from a menace. Their projectile speed is fast, but you can still usually outmaneuver it. Either one of these is actually a really good choice. If you're more afraid of just not paying attention to the environment so much, then I would recommend the high velocity injector system. That way, if you do get swarmed suddenly, you can get away quicker. If that's not a problem, then Overcharged Winch is also a pretty good option. In tier 4, we have Safety First. This makes it so temporary fall damage reduction after releasing from the grappling hook. This can be pretty useful because there will be areas where you want to grab something like a flower or a mushroom that's put in a really weird angle to where nobody else is going to be able to get to it quickly. Some classes just aren't going to be able to get to it at all, like the driller. Where it just wouldn't be practical for them to drill all the way up through the side of the wall and then come out and drop from the ceiling to try to grab it. So this would be where you would come in to grab that. Now, taking reduced damage is always a good thing, because even if you're really good as Scout, there's going to be areas like that where you just want to get the material and you're okay with taking the damage. But there might not be a resupply, there might not be red sugar sitting around, so just taking less damage is always going to be useful, because this will make it so that you aren't wearing down your supplies as much and you can do more collecting. Our second option in tier 4 is Momentum. This gives you a speed boost after you release the grappling hook. This can also be very useful, especially if you're using this as an escape mechanism. If you just want to get away from the situation as fast as possible, Momentum is great. And we have Bypassed Integrity Check. This makes it so our cooldown is even less, so we can use our grappling hook more often, or at least quicker. So instead of it taking 4 seconds, it takes 3 seconds. Nice improvement. For this, I would recommend just going with Safety First. We already have full length, so we can shoot up to a really high point if we need to, especially if we combine this with something like the Gunner's zip lines. That way that we can even use them to get up to a higher area and then use our grappling hook even further up if we need to. So this will just help, as well as safety first will just make it so we take reduced fall damage. This is the build that I usually run if I'm just collecting stuff. I don't really have a problem with the cooldown of the Grappling Hook. Grappling Hook is probably my favorite equipment out of any of the classes, though. It is super fun to use. This is what I usually use, but if I want to get places faster and I want to use my Grappling Hook more often, then I will switch over to a different build, going with Improved Recharger. That way it just comes up faster. We don't have a choice in Tier 2. In Tier 1, again, either of these is good. You might want to switch over to High Velocity Injection System just so that you can shoot your Grappling Hook out faster. It's really your call, though. Here in Tier 3, both are pretty good. And then going to Bypass Integrity Check. That way we do not have to wait 4 seconds for our Grappling Hook to come up. We have to wait 2.5 seconds. We still have 25 meters of reach, which is still pretty good. We can get to most areas this way. And this build is a lot of fun as well. I really enjoy this one because really no matter what the situation is, as long as you didn't just use your Grappling Hook, it should always be on cooldown. So you can move to an area, shoot enemies, move to another area, shoot enemies, move to another area, grab materials, move to another area, and shoot enemies with the Grappling Hook. It's fantastic, and I really like doing this. If you want a more combat-oriented one, like if you're really afraid of swarms, you could, instead of going with the Bypassed Integrity Check, go with Momentum. This can be really good in certain caves, especially very narrow areas in the caves, to use your Grappling Hook and then just have the speed boost to take off running even further. You might be able to make the most amount of distance that way rather than just waiting for your Grappling Hook to recharge. So that's another pretty good build, I would say, too. Let's move on to the Flare Gun. The Flare Gun, we have a couple of options here too. In Tier 1, we have Expanded Ammo Bags. This gives us more flares. We get 3 more, so we go from 12 to 15. Always useful to have extra ammo. We also have Thicker Core. This makes it so your flares last an additional 15 seconds. So rather than lasting 75 seconds, they last 90 seconds. Also pretty good. I usually build one of two ways, either going with the most flares that I can get or going with the most duration I can get. So I'll show you the duration build first. This is just so that you can set up your flares and kind of forget about them because they're going to last a very long time. Probably longer than any of you or your team is going to need to stay in that particular area, assuming that you're not just holding the area, in which case you're likely going to be setting up multiple flares at a time anyway, just so that everybody can see. In Tier 2, we have Supercharged Feed Mechanism. This just makes it so we have a higher rate of fire, which can be kind of nice. It's not really necessary on the Flare Gun. Since you're not going to be using the Flare Gun as a weapon, you can, because the flares do actually do damage when they hit something. But they don't do as much damage as it would be practical for you to do with your assault rifle, your regular rifle, your shotgun, even your submachine guns. But being able to shoot out all your flares quickly is kind of nice. Lights up the whole area really fast, and if you're running something like Born Ready, you can just shoot out all your flares, put the flare gun away, don't even think about it, and then it will be recharged by the time you need it again. Our second option in Tier 2 is High Capacity Magazine. This makes it so we go from having 3 flares to 4 flares. This one's also pretty nice. Having an extra flare in the gun is kind of useful. Again, it's not really necessary. Neither of these Tier 2s are necessary. They're just nice quality of life improvements. So you can pick whichever one you want. I usually go with the High Capacity Magazine just because I don't always run Born Ready with Scout. If you are running Born Ready with Scout, then going with the faster rate of fire can also be pretty good. Even if you're not using it, it can still be pretty good. In Tier 3, we have Auto Reload. This is essentially Born Ready, and if you're running Born Ready, don't take this. This makes it so you automatically reload your weapon within 5 seconds once you put it away. So that can be pretty useful, especially if you're not running Born Ready and you always want to have flares ready. That can be pretty good. We also have Expanded Ammo Bags. This just gives you more ammo, so you get another 3 flares, going from 12 to 15. Again, ammo is always nice. And we have Magnesium Core. This makes it so our flares last even longer. So now they go from 75 seconds up to 105 seconds. I usually go with this one if I'm running the duration build, because I just want my flares up as long as possible. This can be very useful in missions like egg hunts, or even protect the areas. That way I'm just not using as much flares because I just set up the 3 or 4 flares that I have in the gun, and then that will probably take up the majority of the time until we get in another resupply or something like that where I can put up 4 more flares. Another build is going with the maximum amount of flares that you can have, which is just Expanded Ammo Bags. Again, at Tier 3 or Tier 2, you can pick whichever one of these you want. And then going with expanded ammo bags again. So we go from having 12 flares to 18 flares. So we can put up the most amount of flares if we need to. This is really good if you're constantly moving from areas to areas. This one is also good if you have Born Ready as well, because you'll always have a full gun of flares, which is pretty nice. Since you have 18 flares, you will be getting more from resupply. So instead of getting 6 flares, you'll get 9 flares now. Also pretty useful. Like I said, this is more for a run and gun playstyle. If you're just trying to run through missions quickly, then this one works out pretty well. Or if your team is constantly relocating, this one's also pretty good. If you're staying in a single area a lot of the time though, if your team's playing more slow, or if you're maybe solo, then I usually go with the duration add-ons for the flare gun. So those are my 2 builds for the flare gun, and my 2 or 3 builds for the grappling hook. Again, here in the flare gun, you could potentially take auto reload. So these are my builds for Scout's equipment. Hopefully you guys found this informative. If you guys did, then please feel free to subscribe. That way you get notifications whenever I post any of these videos. So thank you guys so very much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it, and I will talk to all of you guys next time. Till then, stay cool, and bye!